What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below, the best gaming related show here on YouTube. And in today's episode, I'm super excited about it. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. So our first topic of the show, guys, is going to be talking about Keanu Reeves and his character in Cyberpunk 2077. I told you guys that I was going to be talking more and more and making more content based around Cyberpunk 2077 the closer that we're getting to the release of the game. And so I wanted to talk about Keanu Reeves and his character, which some of you might have done your own research on him as a character, but if you haven't, you're going to find out a lot of stuff in this particular segment of the show about his character in the game. And I definitely want to get into this thing, guys, right now, because here's the thing. Keanu Reeves, to me, as an actor, is a phenomenal actor. He does a great job, and I love him in John Wick. I love him in The Matrix. Some of his other movies aren't that great, but if you really think about his top two movies, obviously, I would think you would say probably John Wick as well as The Matrix. And so him being in a video game, it just kind of is very fitting for him as an actor and his legacy and such. This could be something that's really, really special. I made a video, guys, a while back about Cyberpunk 2077, and I kind of proposed the question, even though it's super far-fetched, as to what if Cyberpunk 2077 was in the same universe as John Wick for one reason or another, and just kind of proposed the idea, even though it's, I know, very far-fetched, but it was something to kind of create conversation. Well, in an article, guys, that was written by Polygon, Charlie Hall says, "Meet Johnny Silverhand, rock star turned vigilante." CD Projekt Red dropped a bomb on fans today, introducing actor Keanu Reeves as a non-playable character in Cyberpunk 2077. A press release issued today confirms Reeves isn't just playing some mook. He's Johnny Silverhand, an iconic character from the original Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop role-playing game by Mike Pondsmith. In the trailer shown today during the Xbox E3 press conference, a deal involving the player character goes bad. After getting brutalized inside an apartment, they're dumped in a junkyard outside the city limits. That's when Silverhand shows up, reboots the player, and invites them to burn the city down at his side. And so, obviously, guys, the trailer came out a while ago, right? But what I'll say about it is that it's very, it really is interesting. Just how they introduced, Keanu Reeves' his character, Johnny Silverhand. And I think that what they're kind of showing us is that he might not necessarily be a main role in this game, but he's going to be a character in the game, and it might be, it might be more significant than you might actually think. The scenario is eerily similar to the opening moments of Never Fade Away, the short introductory module that shipped with the original Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game in 1988, which also stars Silverhand. Silverhand is a rocker boy, a very specific character class in the world of Cyberpunk 2020. Imagine Dungeons & Dragons Bard class mixed with a counterculture iconoclast, someone with both a message and a trusted connection to the massive audience that needs to hear it. Here's part of the class description from the original text. Rocker boys are the street poets, social consciences, and rebels of the 2000s. With the advent of digital porta studios and garage laser disc mastering, every rocker with a message can take it to the street, put it in the record stores, bounce it off the comsats. Sometimes this message isn't something the corporations or the government wants to hear. Sometimes what you say is going to get right in the faces of the powerful people who really run this world. But you don't care because as a rocker boy, you know it's your place to challenge authority, whether in straight out protest songs that tell it like it is, or just by playing kick-ass rock and roll to get the people away from the TV sets and into the streets. You have a proud history as a rocker boy. Dylan Springsteen, Who, Elvis, the Stones, the legions of hard rock heroes who told the truth with screaming guitars and gut-honest lyrics. So, I think what you can really take from this is that most likely, guys, Johnny Silverhand is going to be a badass character. It seems like he's going to be one of those really cool characters, kind of like a, rocker boy, and type of mentality and feel to him. But I do think that he's going to be one of those guys who's not afraid to get his hands dirty within the game, and I think is going to give us some significant, advice throughout the course of the game. Should be interesting. Another excerpt from the book, Johnny comes to, there's something like broken glass in his guts. Red fire blots out the cool blue neon. He rolls over in a pool of something greasy, blood, his. Behind his eyelids, red digitals feebly clock out his remaining moments, bio clock running down. Cars whistling past on the filthy, rain-wet street beyond. A trauma team ambulance in the distance, sirens screaming, but not for him. He's checking out. So the look of Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk 2077 couldn't be more different. One is stuck in the 1980s while the other seems pitch perfect to our modern vision of what a dystopian future could be. CD Projekt is clearly digging deep into the original game's lore, and by the end of this year, we'll likely know much more about how the game plans to implement it. For its part, the team at Cyberpunk 2020 publisher R. Talsorian Games is thrilled to see Reeves playing one of its most iconic characters. There aren't words to describe seeing someone of Mr. Reeves' talent and legacy picking up a character Mike first introduced over 30 years ago and bringing him to life, a representative told Polygon via email. As a musician and someone who believes in making an impact in the world, someone who has known fame and the way it can lift and cut, it's clear Mr. Reeves can understand Johnny in a way few people can. We're beyond excited. So, overall, guys, I think that this character is going to have a grittiness to him. Going to have a very, like what he is in The Matrix and what he is in John Wick, that being just a badass character who maybe doesn't speak a whole lot, maybe doesn't have a ton of lines in the game, but when he speaks, you're going to listen. Or the other characters within the game and in the world are going to listen. I think that this is going to be a special character, guys. I really do. He's going to be a really cool character. And one thing I'm really hoping for, guys, is when the multiplayer comes out, because multiplayer has been confirmed for Cyberpunk 2077, one thing I'm really hoping for is that we are able to play Johnny Silverhand in the game as a playable character in multiplayer. Maybe obviously not necessarily in the campaign or the story mode, which I think is good. I've always said this, guys. Most video games, depending on like where the story is and such, it's a good idea to just play as one character, and throughout the course of the game, you kind of, really connect with that character. And then maybe in like, if they have other sequels to the Cyberpunk 2077, maybe then you can start introducing other characters that you can play as. But I think that's what really multiplayer's for. You don't want to be taken out of one character and put into another throughout the course of a single player game, especially a game like Cyberpunk that's brand new to all of us and something that we're all very excited to play. But having Keanu Reeves or Johnny Silverhand as a playable character in multiplayer, I think that would be awesome. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comment section below. Let's have a real conversation about it. Our next topic is about the Batman series, guys. The Batman games have been something really special and something that have really been something to look forward to in gaming. Well, we haven't seen a new Batman game for a little while, or at least something really announced and concrete that's going to be coming in the near future. We've been getting some more information, guys, that has been coming out and was coming out, at the end of last year, and even now we have more and more information that's coming in. So what I want to talk about is, where is the new Batman game? Because we have been waiting for it for quite some time, and there's a lot of people, myself included, that want to see a new addition to the Batman Arkham series. So let's talk about it. In an article that was written by Mark Delaney from Games Radar, he says everything we know so far about the new Batman Arkham game, aka Court of Owls. Now, there's been talk that it was going to be called Court of Owls. There's other people saying that it's called Batman Arkham Legacy. So there's a lot of different rumors as far as the title's concerned. I think the biggest thing is that we want to just get confirmation that the game actually exists. The studio has been tight-lipped, but that doesn't mean we don't know who Batman will be up against. If you discount Telltale's adventures with the Cape Crusader in a VR spin-off, it's been a long time, over 4 years since we've donned the cape and cowl as Batman. While Rocksteady continues working behind closed doors very tightly, Warner Brothers Montreal has gone a different route. Not only do we know that its next game takes place in the Batman universe, we know, thanks to a premature tweet, who the main antagonist will be. That's not all we know either. Here's everything we know so far about Warner Brothers Montreal's untitled Batman game, aka the new Batman Arkham game, also known as The Court of Owls. So, the first question many have about Warner Brothers Montreal's project is a sensible one. Are we even sure it's a Batman game? Yeah, we are. On Batman Day this past September 22nd, Warner Brothers Montreal shared a video that celebrated its involvement with Batman's storied history. In that video were hidden 4 mysterious images, and though we don't know what they mean quite yet, the next day Warner Brothers Montreal tweeted a new video with just those images, no longer hiding them in a single frame each. They appear to be some sort of evolving occult-like symbol, and the last one is rather devilish, even resembling the demon's head, the symbol for the League of Assassins, and their semi-immortal leader, Ra's al Ghul. Ra's died seemingly for good in Arkham City, but comics and their spin-offs are known for all sorts of retcons and wacky continuities, so don't count him out yet. Now, so right off the bat, if they brought Ra's al Ghul back, I don't know what I would really feel about that, guys. Ra's al Ghul is a great character, really. I loved him in, the movie with Batman Begins, and I like him in the game, but at the same time, guys, I kind of want to see like some new characters, introduced, and bringing back old characters is always, it's cool, and having like, times where you see new characters or playable characters, whether that's in multiplayer. I know we talked about that in the last segment with Cyberpunk 2077, but for me, it's more like about, let's see some new characters, let's breathe some fresh life into the franchise. That would be kind of my recommendation, but what do I know? Comic fans got excited when Scott Snyder, the author responsible for creating the Court of Owls in DC's New 52 reboot, accidentally tweeted more details than he was apparently supposed to. Quote tweeting the original, more cryptic Warner Brothers Montreal video, he captioned it, "Wait for it, beware the Court of Owls." He even included emojis of a bat and an owl. It makes sense that Snyder would be at least a script consultant, if not the game's full-on writer. So one can assume he's doing more than guesswork, especially when you consider he quickly deleted the tweet. If you're not into comics, or maybe just missed the story arc, first of all, fix that. It's one of the best Batman stories ever and changed the landscape of the timeless hero's world for good. That's why a game built around the Court of Owls is so appealing. Think of them as Gotham's Illuminati, an omnipotent secret society that pulls its strings from the shadows using expert assassins and enormous wealth, all while they wear owl masks to hide their identities. The Court of Owls deploy their assassins, called Talons, to keep their interests well managed. And once Batman begins to unravel this conspiracy that dates back to the colonial era, he becomes their target. Some of the Talons even have some meta-human capabilities, which should fit in with the Arkham continuity that already plays host to Man-Bat, Titan Formula, and a very Freddy Krueger-like Scarecrow. But even Bruce Wayne, the first son of Gotham City, had written them off as nothing more than a forum fair for the tinfoil hat community before one of them, William Cobb, tried to assassinate him. So the Court of Owls, guys, it's a cool concept, and I think it's something that really hasn't been shown much in, within the movies as well as within that of the games either. And that's something I think that it's different, and that's what I'm getting at here, is having different stuff I think is going to be really great. Now, bringing back some of the original things is good as well. But I like this direction. I like that we're going to get something new, something mysterious that, people might not know what the Court of Owls is. So that being said, it's a good idea to kind of, bring those things into the fray, and people may really enjoy it. I think people would enjoy this. The Court of Owls definitely has a lot of mystery to it, as well as, different types of characters and things of that nature that you can definitely start to learn about. And I think for a game, this is going to be really great to kind of learn more and more about the Court of Owls as you would go throughout, if this rumor, of course, is true. Now, the nature of the Court of Owls also lends itself to a nemesis system like that in the Middle-earth games from Warner Brothers and Monolith. We've since seen Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed employ a similar system, and it always seemed like Warner Brothers' Mad Max was once intended to have a nemesis system too, and maybe they ran out of time. But that nemesis system never quite took off the way many expected and hoped it would. With so many talents able to roam the open world of Gotham, Warner Bros. Montreal's next game could carry the torch, which has mostly stayed surprisingly dormant under the Warner Bros. Umbrella. The only part of all this owl talk that is confusing is how it ties into the League of Assassins. They're very separate entities in the comics, and though either would suit a story and nemesis system, well, it may be the case that the game studio is taking some liberties in merging the two somehow, or perhaps even making them adversarial. That wouldn't take too much work, since the League of Assassins views Gotham as a cesspool worth destroying, and the Court of Owls maintain all their power by hoarding over that alleged cesspool. It seems like Batman will be stuck in the middle, which would be very interesting. Just think of this, guys. So if you got the League of Assassins and the Court of Owls, and they're fighting each other throughout the course of the game, and then you got Batman kind of in the middle of that, and he has to almost pick a side, so to speak, that would be a very interesting narrative throughout the course of the story. Now, Kevin Conroy won't be voicing Batman, so I guess that has been confirmed that he will not he absolutely will not be doing the voice of Batman. Now, a release date apparently is going to be coming reasonably soon. As Warner Brothers publicist Gary Menro said above, we won't have to wait much longer for a release date reveal. Some fans took the Batman Day teases to mean the game would be revealed at Sony's State of Play event just days thereafter, but that came and went with no such reveal. But if we're to interpret reasonably soon as before 2020, there are still 3 major events that could host the grand unveiling. So obviously, guys, we're in 2020 and we have not heard anything as of yet. And so the thing about it is, though, we've waited a long time. I would say, guys, we're going to see a reveal this year, and then we'll probably get the game either in 2021 or 2022, depending on how far in development they are. I would think that they're pretty far into development. That would just be kind of like my thought, but it's hard to say. It really is. It's hard to say if they're, really far in development, or if they still don't, if there's still a lot that needs to be done. It's hard to say. Now, this is really interesting. Warner Brothers Montreal was and maybe still is creating 2 DC comic games. For a studio that has been pretty quiet outside of its Batman games, they were certainly slated to have their hands full. Years ago, Warner Brothers Montreal confirmed they were working on a pair of DC Comics video games. These days, it seems like maybe that's not the case anymore, but that's merely speculation because it's been so long. If the Damian Wayne game was real, it's not likely that was the second game alongside this Court of Owls project. 2 console Batman games at once doesn't quite fit. More likely that Damian Wayne game was folded into the other DC game, and combined they became this soon to be revealed title. Of course, it's still totally possible. Warner Brothers Montreal continues to work on 2 games adapted from DC Comics heroes, but it's taken 4 years for fans to see anything concrete about this Batman title. If there is another DC Comics game being made inside the offices of Warner Brothers Montreal, time is running out for fans to believe it's ever going to happen. So I think, look, if it were up to me, I would love to have a ton of DC Comics games. I think that would be awesome. But Warner Brothers Montreal, I think what they need to do is, since it's been a while since Batman, we've had a solid Batman game, I think they need to focus solely on that. And then, as the studio grows, start working on a couple of other projects. That would be great. I think, maybe if you brought the Batman game out, you had maybe a mobile game or a VR game, and then, over time you start building to, 2 to 3, 3 different projects that they might be working on at any given time, all based on the DC Comics. That would be really cool as well. But at this point, guys, I wouldn't hold your breath when it comes to having more than one DC Comics game, because we haven't even really got even confirmation that a Batman game's coming. I'm sure it is, guys. It's just a matter of time. But let's just kind of take it one step at a time here. Let's get a new Batman game out, and then we can kind of move in a direction from there. But let me know what you guys think. What are you most excited about a new Batman game? What do you guys want to see? Do you like the concepts here with, the Court of Owls and, versus the League of Assassins? What are you guys looking forward to in this upcoming title? Let me know, and let's have a real conversation about it. So our next topic of the show, guys, is going to be about Evolve and the future of Evolve. If there is a future at all for this franchise, I think, guys, that Evolve is a game, of course, that we've already talked about. We've talked about a couple of times now on the YouTube channel, but I wanted to kind of wrap things up as to where we stand right now with the future of this franchise. So where is Evolve 2? As in the second game, or is there going to be a second game, or is there going to be a soft reboot of Evolve? Let's kind of talk about that right now, guys. And so as we've talked about in the past, kind of what happened to Evolve, that being, this franchise that had so much potential, right? I mean, we can all agree that Evolve was a game that had a massive amount of potential, and it really had so much hype build up as well. I mean, think about it. Like, I'll never forget when, they started promoting this game. All of us, many gamers out there, were thinking that this was going to be something really special. And I still think to this day that it could have been really special. And I think it still could be special to this day if it were to be supported. But either way, guys, it was a game that really came out at the wrong place at the wrong time in gaming history. And so what I mean by that, guys, is it was a different type of game, right? It didn't really have a campaign mode. It didn't really have anything other than like co-op modes, like a 4v1 type of multiplayer game, right? And I think what happened was with 2K games, they kind of stretched themselves so thin with this kind of, mentality that they were going to do like this multiplayer game. And I think, as we had spoken and read in the past with, what the developers were thinking, they were fully on board with this 4v1 multiplayer. And you know what? It's interesting because a lot of the games to this day that have that kind of, setup in their multiplayer games, like a 4v1 or a 3v1, really have Evolve to thank for that, because they were the first ones to really kind of try it. And they kind of foresaw the future of what like that kind of genre of multiplayer, and it just really fell flat on its face. And then you had other games that have come out, in the more recent past that have kind of taken that same type of multiplayer game and have turned it into like a juggernaut of a multiplayer. And you think of games like, Dead by Daylight, and that's a really big game at this point. Evolve could have been that. And I think it just, obviously it was like the scapegoat. It was the scapegoat game that at the time that it came out, just everybody was just, that being like reviewers and, content creators and just so many people were just like kind of jumping on this hate of Evolve and for some of the moves that they were making. Sure, a lot of it had to do with like the DLC. A lot of it had to do with, just different pre-order bonuses and things of that nature. And even the developer said they wanted to make the game free to play, and they didn't. And it was a $60 game, and lots of people were really bummed out after receiving the game, and it just didn't meet expectations essentially. So what does that mean for the future, guys? Obviously, back in 2018, we saw that 2K was shutting down the servers and shut down the servers of Evolve. My thought process is, could they ever bring it back? As like a soft reboot? Could they ever bring it back as a, just as something, a sequel? Or could they, maybe they would take the ideas from Evolve and put it into like a new IP? I think all those things are very much something that could happen in the future. I personally want to see a soft reboot of Evolve. I would love to see the developers get the opportunity to make the game right, kind of make it right with everyone, but make it a free-to-play multiplayer experience with microtransactions, and I think people would absolutely love it. I mean, the idea of it was really cool. It was complex, because each of the different monsters had, of course, different abilities, and they all work differently, so it made things very difficult and very different. I also think that having a campaign would have really helped as well, and maybe other game modes. And I've said this on multiple occasions, guys, that many video games to this day are having this same kind of issue where they're kind of sticking with one game mode, or they're sticking with, a couple of game modes and no campaign, no co-op modes. It's all based around, Battle Royale, for example. I mean, it's like when you just have a Battle Royale game and it's all BR, over time, people are going to want to play, maybe a different game mode. I mean, most people will. They'll want to play other game modes. So I think what these games need to do is they need to evolve over time. No pun intended. They need to evolve over time and create new game modes to keep people coming back, keep people really interested in the game. Now, obviously, games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, they're changing the map up, so that kind of keeps people coming back to to those Battle Royale modes. But I really think more game modes. The same thing with Evolve. It should have added some more game modes, maybe just a single player story, even if it was very short. Some co-op modes, some other modes outside of the 4v1 type of game. Ultimately, guys, I think that was kind of, what doomed Evolve wasn't necessarily the lack of other game modes. It was just the fact that the DLC and the, all of the pre-order bonuses, people just absolutely jumped on the hate wagon of Evolve when they were kind of showing the pre-order bonuses and things of that nature. And lo and behold, I mean, that was kind of like the prep for what was coming in the form of microtransactions. It was very interesting how this all kind of went down. But now a lot of people just don't like microtransactions at all. And, there's a lot of hate around different games based around the microtransactions, which for good reason. But it's interesting that Evolve, it was something to do with it was to do not with microtransactions, but with DLC, even though DLC is technically microtransactions, but it kind of in a little bit of a different way. And then, of course, pre-order bonuses. Just really interesting that people got so uptight about that. But at the same time, I mean, I understand why, and what really made Evolve fail. And it's really unfortunate. It really is that it was just an unfortunate thing. I think it was a game that came out at the wrong place at the wrong time. So what does that mean for Evolve 2? And I think that kind of explains where is Evolve 2? Right now, guys, it's shut down. I mean, there might have been talks of Evolve 2 coming out at some point, when Evolve first launched, because it sold really well, but it is for whatever reason, it's not only viewership, but also just the player base completely plummeted. And really, I mean, 2K and everybody involved was just kind of caught with their pants down, trying to figure out what they needed to do and what exactly went wrong for them. And I really do feel bad for the developers. And I just, it's so sad because this was a game that had so much potential. I believe it was one of those, it was my most anticipated game of the year when it first came out. And then after picking it up and playing it, it just, obviously it didn't, meet those expectations. And one of the things that, for me at least, that kept me from, going all in on this game was the fact that it was only multiplayer. It didn't have any campaign. It didn't have co-op. Real other co-op modes. It was basically just 4v1, which is a really interesting concept, but it just didn't seem to work. And so I don't think an Evolve 2 would necessarily work. Now, a soft reboot, free-to-play reboot with some microtransactions so that the developers can make some money, I think it would be extremely successful, in my personal opinion. Because when they made Evolve free-to-play, it was a little bit too little, too late. And so that's where I think Evolve 2 is at this point, guys. I think that it is not in a limbo state or anything like that. I think it's completely dead. There's no way that they're going to make Evolve 2 at this point. But a soft reboot, I think, is something that could happen. What it really comes down to, guys, is if you would want to see a second Evolve game, you have to be that voice. I always talk about with StarCraft, we have to be the voice of StarCraft 3, making a new game. You as a part of the community and the community in general has to be the voice of that and say, look, we want this game made and we want a continuation of the story. And so that's what's going to get, that can move mountains, guys. Sometimes the developers don't listen, but when they start seeing a big movement come into the fray as far as, hey, we want this game made, if enough people are saying that they want an Evolve 2, there's a potential possibility that they might look at it again. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think was the real downfall of Evolve, and would you want to see a sequel or a soft reboot? Let me know what you guys think, and let's have a conversation about it. Our last topic of the show, guys, is going to be talking about Wolfenstein. I want to talk about Wolfenstein. We haven't talked about this series on the YouTube channel as of yet, and I wanted to change that because, look, this is a refreshing franchise. It's just a very fun game to sit down and just kind of sit back, relax, and a very fun action-filled game, right, with a lot of gore and just a lot of excitement built around this game. I want to talk about kind of what happened in Wolfenstein because I feel like this is a game that has gone through a few, phases, a few stages here where, it kind of has its peaks and its valleys. And right now I was kind of thinking since Wolfenstein in 2009, I feel like that was kind of a low point for the series. And then I believe it started kind of going up and started really doing amazing things all the way to the new Colossus. And then I feel like it's kind of going back downhill a little bit. So what happened to Wolfenstein? Let's talk about it. In order to really talk about this franchise, guys, we've got to talk about the history of Wolfenstein, right? Guys, this game in this franchise dates back to 1981 with Castle Wolfenstein. Absolutely incredible. Like, it dates all the way back to 1981. And look, I mean, from Castle Wolfenstein to Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, which was, came out a few years later, and then years after that, you had Wolfenstein 3D, followed by Spear of Destiny, and then pretty much like 8 years after the Spear of Destiny, you had the return to Castle Wolfenstein, and it really didn't turn into just purely Wolfenstein, like kind of getting rid of the castle part of it, just calling it Wolfenstein. It wasn't really renamed until 2003 with Wolfenstein Enemy Territory and Wolfenstein RPG, which was in 2008. A year after RPG, you had Wolfenstein, which was just kind of seemed like somewhat of a sequel to the Return to Castle Wolfenstein. That came out a year after in 2009. And this is where, guys, I felt like Wolfenstein Enemy Territory and Wolfenstein RPG was kind of, it was somewhat kind of going back in a decent direction. I mean, we can kind of go over all of the game rankings and such, but like Wolfenstein, for example, in 2009, pretty much all across the board with game rankings got like 74%. And then once we started getting to like some of the later games is where we started really seeing jumps in the actual game ratings as well as Metacritic. And so I felt like with Enemy Territory and RPG, those two games on game rankings got like 88% and 87% respectively. Now, RPG was specifically on mobile phones, so we probably can't really talk much about that. But Enemy Territory, guys, I felt like, it was kind of going in a good direction again. We were kind of moving in this good direction because, I had the original games and, I never played those. I came into the series, guys, with Wolfenstein in 2009. But I'd obviously seen game footage and such of Enemy Territory and Return to Castle Wolfenstein. And those games, did all right. It was kind of like moving in this good direction. And then Wolfenstein came out in 2009 and just didn't do very good. I actually was about to just completely leave the franchise. I was about to say, you know what, I'm not going to play any more of these. I gave it another shot, though. I gave a shot in the next one that came out, which was the New Order in 2014. And the New Order, guys, got I would say pretty much on an approximate 82% on game ranking. So it started moving in the right direction once again. And then you obviously, I really felt like the golden ages of Wolfenstein has been since 2014 to about 2017, I would say. Because we also had Wolfenstein The Old Blood, which of course was a prequel to The New Order. And that came out in 2015. Not as good of ratings, but it was okay. It was decent, not great though. But then the big one, guys, was Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, which was easily the best in the series in my opinion. Got about 89% on game ratings and unbelievable. Absolutely incredible. The New Colossus was awesome. Came out in 2017. And then that was the peak in my opinion. And so it was like, okay, can we get a Wolfenstein 3, a continuation of this? This is so sick. I absolutely loved the New Colossus. I like the New Order as well, but the New Colossus was super cool. It was just very well done. I thought it was great from beginning to end. It was on the edge of your seat action. It was just really exciting. Then we get Youngblood in 2019, as well as Cyberpilot. So really, we're going to talk about Youngblood because Youngblood, they went back, almost went backwards, guys. You're going back to about, between 70 to 75% on game ratings, which isn't absolutely terrible, but that's a decline, right? So what's happening right now is you had a rise in the franchise back to kind of mediocrity with Wolfenstein in 2009. Then it started kind of building between the New Order to the New Colossus to the best peaks of Wolfenstein, their history. And then now it's kind of coming back down with Youngblood and Cyberpilot. So here's what... Okay, so that's kind of the history of Wolfenstein. That's kind of part of it. And now with what really happened to Wolfenstein... I think what happened was they went away from the formula that was working with the New Order and then with the New Colossus. They were doing something special there. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to go back and what they need to do, in my opinion, is make a Wolfenstein 3 and continue onwards with the New Colossus, and making, furthering this franchise, in my opinion, is what they need to do. Doing in my opinion, Youngblood there was just a lot of things that it took us out of, it took me at least out of the main, what felt like the main story. I know it's a part of, canon of Wolfenstein, but it just, I don't know, it was a significant step backwards in the wrong direction to what they were building with the New Colossus. And, BJ, who you play in the New Colossus, was an incredible character. The characters in Youngblood, Jessica and Sophia, you don't really care as much as them, even though that they are related to BJ. It's just kind of I don't know. I just found myself not caring as much about that story. And I think it shows with the ratings and all of that stuff, the game ratings and the Metacritic and all of those things. That's what happened. I think Youngblood happened, and now there's that we're kind of going back. What we're seeing is something cyclical here, and it's kind of going up and down, whereas what you want to have is you want to have a steady increase. Maybe you go backwards a little bit, but at least you're kind of still moving forward, right? So Youngblood is a step in the wrong direction. However, that doesn't mean that the franchise is doom and gloom, because I believe that one really good game can put them right back on track. Think about the Call of Duty franchise. You think about Call of Duty, you look at all the games that came out for 6 years that were incredible, and then we had 3 games that were terrible. As in, they weren't absolutely horrible, but you went into the dark ages of Call of Duty with the jetpack era, that being Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare, which really, Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 3 were the dark ages in my opinion. So 2 years of just really, it was tough to be in the COD community. Then they come back, they go back to what the series was so good at, boots on the ground. You had World War II, followed by Black Ops 4, followed by Modern Warfare, and the rest is history. And here we go. We're off to the races now with Call of Duty. You had significant incline, a decline for a couple of years, and back in the right direction, and hopefully it continues, right? Wolfenstein, I'm looking at the same way. A little bit more back and forth, obviously, with these games. But I really think that there's a ton of potential with Wolfenstein. Like, it's a great franchise, and obviously, you know, it's pretty popular. People have been buying it, and people enjoy Wolfenstein. So what I think needs to happen is a couple of things. Number one, I think Wolfenstein being a multiplayer game would be great as well, bringing people back, or at least having extra modes and such where you can like go, you know, play against hordes upon hordes of enemies and such. That would be really cool. I also think that, you know, like I said, just a traditional like PvP, PvE multiplayer would be incredible. And then, of course, like just a really action-packed, fun, unrealistic, but extremely playable and replayable campaign. And, you know, keep us, you know, kind of, you know, stay true to the story and such, but, you know, continue moving in a solid direction. Like let's go back to like the main series here. Like what I mean by that is let's make a Wolfenstein 3. Let's get a Wolfenstein 3 made. I'm hoping that that's what we get, you know, from Bethesda. And I mean, I'm assuming that after some of these other projects that they're working on, Wolfenstein is definitely something that they'll come back to. But that's what I'm hoping for, guys. I think what happened with Wolfenstein was, you know, just some games that have kind of held it back from its full potential, but they have come out with enough good games that we can continue seeing that incline as time goes. I think if they just keep adding on to it, some multiplayer modes, some, you know, other co-op modes, I think those would really be helpful for the franchise. But let me know what you guys think about Wolfenstein. What do you guys think about the franchise, where they're headed at this point? What do you want to see in the future of Wolfenstein? Let me know and let's have a real conversation about it. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.